All right, Travis, today we're going to talk about something unique and really exciting. I hope our viewers don't fall asleep on this one, but this is all your fault. I think you wanted this. So It's the Nebraska capital gains exclusion rule. You don't hear about this rule much on a daily basis, but it could make a massive difference in people that live in Nebraska. So let's unpack it for everyone.
Yeah, so it's a special provision where certain capital gains from the sale of stock can be excluded from your Nebraska income tax, right? It's not your typical exclusion, though. It's pretty specific. To qualify, I'm going to make sure I try to get some of this right as we work through this. The capital stock has to be from a Nebraska-based corporation. And the person selling the stock must have acquired it through employment with the corporation. So it's first two requirements here.
Yeah. And so it's if you've been working for Nebraska, to make sure I have this right, if you've been working for a Nebraska company and you got some stock as part of your compensation package, the stock might be eligible for the exclusion for you to sell it later. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, but there's a catch, okay? You have to make the election beforehand. Before any sale happens, the taxpayer of the company itself has to elect to treat the stock as they call it qualified stock for the purpose of the exclusion. And it's not something that you can just do last minute either. The election has to be placed before you even think about selling the stock, or it's not going to count.
So like you said, it's all about planning ahead.
It is.
Right? Like most things in this business. If you haven't done the election or if you haven't planned ahead, I mean, you can miss out on a big tax break when you sell this stock. And I think a lot of people don't even know about this particular rule. There's also another requirement here, Steve. I mean, the company also has to have its headquarters in Nebraska too. So keep that in mind if you work for one of these bigger corporations. The company must have its headquarters in Nebraska, and it must have been for at least the last 3 years, as the rule is written, for the sale of the stock to qualify. So we're talking about companies rooted in Nebraska helping build the state's economy, which I think was the underpinning of the whole exemption
Which makes
to begin
complete
with.
sense, yeah. So to be clear, the exclusion applies only to Nebraska state taxes. You're still on the hook for federal capital gains taxes, though. So Uncle Sam's
That's an important point.
Yeah, Uncle Sam's still going to get his hand in your pocket. while you save a lot at the state level, you're still going to pay capital gains taxes. The federal side, we said that. I'm beating a dead horse right now. This is a great deal, though, for those who qualify, especially if they're planning ahead.
Yeah, but it's an important point you're beating home.
Is.
You're still going to pay federal tax, you're just not going to pay that Nebraska state tax. So Steve, where do we see this the most? Primarily for employees compensated with stock options or ownership, obviously in a Nebraska-based company. So think of entrepreneurs, early stage startups, or what I would say is the most common that we see is executives in local corporations, right?
For sure.
They stand to benefit the most because if the company does well, obviously that stock could become worth quite a bit, be a large portion of your wealth. And again, if we can avoid paying some tax when you sell that stock, I mean, every dollar back in your pocket counts.
It does, and it makes sense. To summarize and to just make sure everybody understands, if you work for a Nebraska-based company and you get the stock as part of a compensation package, and if the company makes the proper elections in advance, you can sell the stock later and exclude yourselves from the state of Nebraska state income tax, which is about 7% that could go back in your pocket.
Right.
But you've got to plan ahead, and you have to remember, you are still going to owe Uncle Sam. They're going to get their piece of your
at the federal level.
At the federal level, yeah.
And I think the one point you missed was it has to be 3 years. The corporation has to be.
Yes, it does have to be 3
3
years.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah, so huge potential tax savings for those who qualify. Obviously requires thinking ahead on this to do it right. But I'd say it's worth checking with your tax professional if you think you're eligible. Because this isn't your everyday tax tip. It's not something that everyone can use, but it could be a game changer for some people out there.
It could save them a lot of money, and it just makes sense to make sure that you work with your tax professional and your advisor to make sure you take advantage of this, to put it back in your pocket rather than paying unnecessary taxes.
Absolutely.
Travis, has been great. I look forward to it next week.
Look forward to it as well.